Welcome everyone to HARP. As you know, my name is Nahielly Palacios, and I will be facilitating our session today. HARP stands for Holistic Academic and Research Reflective Practice. This is an online developmental program designed to foster researcher and academic reflexivity, peer-led learning, and a sense of community and shared understanding among academics and researchers at the University of Manchester. In that sense, HARP offers a space for academics to come and reflect on the social and emotional challenges of their work. The topic today is the imposter within. I'm delighted to introduce our three panelists who will be sharing their stories on this topic. First, I'd like to introduce Adi Romadhon, who works at UPN veteran Jawa Timur in Indonesia. Adi, Adi just graduated from the MA TESOL program at the University of Manchester. And I think, are you coming to graduation, Adi?
No, I don't think so. Last time I checked, it was like 26 hours of flight, so I'm already been here, so yeah.
Well, we're gonna miss you for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Me too.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Ching Chu, hello, yay, researcher and academic in China. Ching finished her PhD. I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
2024.
was last year. Yeah, last year December. Yeah.
Time flew, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to see everyone. Hi, everyone.
Yay. And last but not least, Dr. Stephen Rayner, Honorary Research Fellow at the University of Manchester, who also shares, the same experience of being a seat alumni at this university. Stephen, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, lovely to see you all. I think it's fantastic that we have colleagues here from Indonesia and China. Nahielly and I are both in the same building in Manchester, sitting behind our screens. Ignore the backgrounds. And in fact, we met earlier this morning, face to face in Nahielly's office, and it's raining.
It is. Now that you know our incredible panel, let's dive into the conversation. So to kick us off, I'd like to ask Adi to share his experience with the topic.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Naili, for having me. I'd like to share a personal story about a time in my life when I faced a deep perfectionist imposter, how that experience ended up shaping the way I approach my academic journey today. So, when I was undergraduate, I went through a phase where I pushed myself far beyond what was healthy. I studied alone, I carried every assignment by myself, tried to look strong, even when it felt completely lost. I've learned that many students today still fall into that pattern. We think that pressure is a proof of ambition, and doing everything alone is a sign of strength. And if any of you who are still a student ever felt like you weren't allowed to ask for help or that you need to earn your place by suffering quietly, yeah, I've been there too. So what finally changed me started with one simple realization. I noticed that success isn't about surviving alone. It's about building a way of working that's sustainable for the person you are. And I want to share how that shift helped me when I continued my master's degree 7 years after I graduated from my undergraduate study. So if I go back to my struggle undergraduate years, the truth is that I knew nothing about research, not the structure, not the planning, not the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. But at the same time, I carried the constant pressure to impress people around me. I thought it was healthy because it pushed me to work harder. And honestly, I enjoyed the feeling when others admired my work. It made me believe that my progress mattered. So when it comes to choose my final year project, I chose something incredibly ambitious. I decided to develop an English learning boarding game using a full R&D model. So starting from the design, the mechanics, materials, testing, and everything, I did entirely on my own. A few lecturers and friends suggested that maybe to choose something simpler. They said the topic was too complicated for an undergraduate student, especially with the limited time and resources. And I should have listened, but I didn't. Instead, I told myself challenge accepted. So I imagine how impressed people would be when they finally saw the final product. That image kept me going, and I believe I could finish it in 6 months. I was very wrong. But the third month, the project felt like it was controlling me instead of the other way around. Every step took longer than expected. Small tasks become big problems, and doing everything alone made it even heavier. 6 months arrived, and then the project was nowhere near finished. By month 9, the imposter feeling hit me hard. I watched many of my classmates finish their projects and prepare for graduation, but I was still stuck in the same endless cycle. I felt like I had failed the expectation, both my friend and mine. I started to think maybe everyone was right. Maybe I overestimated myself. I started feeling like I'm not capable enough of this. And I started asking, why am I even doing this? So this is when the ambition turns into frustration. So that was the lowest point of my life. Well, not of my life, well, at the time. I isolated myself completely by myself. I felt stuck and depressed. I put everything aside for 3 weeks because I didn't know what I was doing anymore. And during that pause, I asked myself the hardest questions. Why did I choose this topic? And the answer was quite painful. I realized I did it to impress people, and those people had already moved on. They graduated, they weren't watching anymore, but I was still here, facing the consequences of my own ambition. Those 3 weeks were very uncomfortable, but they were honest, and somewhere in that silence, a shift happened. I realized that I had to finish what I started, not for validation, not for applause, but because I need to take responsibility. I stopped aiming for perfections. I stopped trying to be the impressive student. I focused on finishing the project well enough with the sincerity instead of performance. And from that experience, I learned that ambition can become a trap when it's driven by the need to impress others. And doing everything alone doesn't make you stronger, it just isolates you. And trying to look perfect is a fragile motivation. Once the audience disappear, you're left with the weight on your shoulder alone. But the biggest lesson was fear of looking incompetent is actually human. But having the courage to continue anyway without chasing validation is growth. So 7 years later, I began my master's degree at the University of Manchester, and that difficult undergraduate phase became the foundation that allowed me to walk through my master journey with even more clarity. This time, I applied every lesson I had learned. I didn't chase validation. I didn't aim to be perfect. I didn't try to do everything by myself. I asked for help. I involved people. I welcome feedback instead of hiding my weaknesses. And because of that, the 3 months I spent working on my dissertation felt surprisingly light. They were productive, effective, and most importantly, balanced. I could work consistently while still enjoying my hobbies, such as going to the gym and volunteering as well, staying active socially. There was no emotional heaviness like before. This dissertation didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a journey I was allowed to take at a healthy pace. And aside from sticking to my schedule, I believe the real reason it felt manageable was because I gave myself permission to be human. Didn't expect myself to have all the answers. I didn't punish myself for not being perfect. I didn't hide my gaps. I allowed myself to grow without actually performing or thinking about to impress others. And that changed everything. So if there's one message I'd like to leave here is that we don't become imposter. We don't overcome imposter feeling by achieving more, but by allowing ourselves to grow more openly and imperfectly. I believe that imposter voice grows louder when we work alone, when we hide our struggles, when we chase approval, but it grows quieter when we involve others, ask questions, and let ourselves be seen as learners rather than performers. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I really like all the visuals and how you put your experience. I hear the internal conflict that you described and that profound sense of isolation and feeling stuck that you mentioned, especially when trying to impress others.
Yes.
But I also hear that shift that you mentioned where you went back to yourself, to who you are. You started being kinder to yourself, for understanding, yes, who you are and following your own processes. And I could see a little bit of enjoyment when you mentioned as well, like, yes, now I'm doing something for me.
Yeah, true. Definitely.
Yes, I appreciate you making these feelings visible. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And honestly, this is hard to share because I didn't actually share this kind of story to anyone at all because I feel like this is something that I should hide because it's the imperfection that I've always been hiding from people.
That
So yeah,
it is that conflict, living in a site of struggle, like
yeah,
Bonnie Norton, who's a theorist and the area of identity, would say something like that. We're just struggling because we're competing against different ideologies all the time.
yes,
And that ideology of, if you show weakness, then therefore you're not worth of X,
yeah,
Y, and Z is a constant, conflict, especially if you were trying to do something different and be yourself, your authentic self. So thank you for sharing. To continue the conversation, Stephen, are you ready to share your story?
I am, yes. Would you like to put the slide? Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Nahielly, and special thanks to Adi and Ching for their fascinating stories. I think when I start speaking, you might think that my background is so different from yours that my experience perhaps isn't of much help to you, but I hope by the time I've finished, you'll see some real similarities between us and maybe between the three of us. So I'm giving you one slide with some pictures on it. Picture one, I don't look like that now. That was taken 15 years ago. So there are two differences. One is I'm 15 years older. The other is that's what I used to look like when I went to work for 35 years. I'm speaking today about my journey from 2010 to 2025. Up to 2010, I was a school teacher, a school leader. I was an education officer for a local district authority. So every day for 35 years, I had to put on a smart shirt and tie to go to work. I'd written professional reports for education audiences. I'd been on a national working group led by the Ministry of Education. So I thought I knew quite a lot of stuff about education. And in 2011, I was still working, I registered for a part-time doctorate that took 6 years. I was really nervous about academic study because I hadn't done any for a long time. I'd done a master's distance learning some years ago. But one thing I thought I had was I knew a lot about education and I was good at writing. That was what I thought. I soon began to doubt that. As you know, a doctoral thesis is usually 80,000 words. Now, mine was an EdD, doctorate in education, so our 80,000 words was divided up. Our thesis was 50,000, and before that we had to write 3 10,000 word research papers, all marked to doctoral standard. So if you have a look at picture 2, that's an extract from my supervisor's feedback on my second research paper. Nahielly asked us to share a specific moment or incident where the feeling of being an imposter was perhaps the strongest, and this is mine. Before I say any more about it, I absolutely agree with what Ching said just now. We need to be careful about the term imposter. Sorry, Nahielly. We need to be careful about the term imposter because it's too easy to think that we don't belong. We do belong here. We chose the university and the university chose us. So we should have some confidence in that. For me, what imposter means, what the imposter syndrome means, is that most of us from time to time have moments when we are discouraged forever and give up, or better, discouraged for a short time and gain strength. Now, if you have a look at that feedback, it's not terrible, is it? It isn't devastating. I passed the paper. I passed the research paper at the first attempt. But if you look at the comments, it's useful. The researcher has struggled a little with his first engagement with the requirements of the research report format. And then the phrase that really got me was, there is probably little to be gained by reworking this paper. And I discussed this with a colleague, and I'm so glad that both Adi and Ching made this point about collaboration. It's so easy to feel isolated, isn't it, when you're an academic researcher, when you're a doctoral student. And I spoke to a colleague who some of you will know, Dr. Liz Gregory now, a colleague and friend of mine, who was doing the same program. There is little to be gained by reworking this paper. And with a little encouragement from Liz, I reworked this paper. I reduced it from 10,000 words to 4,000, and I submitted it to a journal, and it was published. And picture 3, that was my research paper. The core of that paper, a 4,000 word article, and it was the first publication that I had. So it was taking a setback, really, and then turning it into an opportunity. And this was an important part of the journey that I made from 2010 onwards, from a professional world in schools to the academic world in this university. So picture 4, that's a group of my school students. So they would have been in about year 8 or 9, so grade 8 or 9. And then picture 5, that's a group of my university students. Those are master's students at their graduation. They're international students on the blended learning master's program on which I used to teach, the Masters in Educational Leadership in Practice. So I said I'd try to convince you that my experience relates directly to yours. And my point is this: there are students there from the UK, Saudi Arabia, Colombia, China, Kazakhstan. Every one of those students has knowledge and experience that I didn't have and that I don't have. They're far ahead of mine in their own field. And they bring that knowledge and experience to their studies. So my supposed authority as a university teacher is balanced by their authority based on their own background. So I want to just to end with an example that sheds some light, I hope, on this imposter concern. And my example is Helen Liu. Now, Helen Liu is the person on the right of that picture, on the extreme right of that picture. That's Helen. And Helen was one of the students I worked with on the program. I supervised the research stage with Helen. Helen was never really satisfied with her marks for the assignments. She thought she was struggling. She probably suspected that she was an imposter because she found academic writing and thinking a real challenge. She graduated, as you see. But I had the privilege of seeing Helen at work, visiting Helen's school in Shanghai. That's the last picture, picture 6. It's a top international school. Helen is an assistant principal. She's head of the school's primary department. She's a confident professional managing staff and students. Helen's challenge, like my challenge, wasn't to fight against the risk of failure in the academic world. What Helen and I both had to do was to work out ways of drawing on our professional knowledge and experience and shaping the way we express it so that we could make a real original contribution to knowledge about education. So my advice when you feel lost or overwhelmed, and I say when, not if, because we're very unusual if we never feel lost or overwhelmed, think of what you bring to the research. It will be a combination of your previous studies, your professional experience, your country's culture and history, your social awareness, your language skills, and be prepared for unexpected things to happen. I never intended to become a university lecturer. I was a school teacher, but the opportunity came up and I was delighted to take it. So for the 8 years until I retired last December, I've learned so much from working with colleagues from around the world. So thank you for listening to my story. I hope you've heard something that you can relate to your own experience and future thinking. Thank you, Nahielly.